Hey, y'all, and welcome to the MrMaple Show. I'm Tim.
And I'm Sean.
And today we're bringing you one of the most important parts of a garden. They're probably one of the most underthought about parts of a garden. We're talking about walkway plantings with Japanese maples. Now we're going to talk about how you should design these, what is a walkway planting, what your walkway should do, and some good recommendations for Japanese maples for these walkway plantings.
And if you're wondering who we are, we're MrMaple.com. We have over 1,500 different varieties of Japanese maples and a whole lot of other plants as well besides Japanese maples, so be sure to check us out.
And we put out daily content here on the MrMaple Show. You should check us out. Make sure you like and subscribe. And also, we do a weekly podcast, the MrMaple Show, on your favorite podcast platform. We'd appreciate if you subscribe to there as well.
So what is a walkway planting? We're talking about what leads you, the path basically, what leads you down. And I always like to start, what is the most important thing with a walkway? Is its entrance.
That is an understatement. I mean, if you're walking into a garden, how do you get in there? And, I think that's overlooked often. I think people just start walking down a pathway. And sometimes, that's fine to have an open entrance if that's the aesthetic that you're going for. But I think some of the entrances of gardens can be some of the most dynamic things to the garden itself.
Absolutely. And this is what is going to lead you through your garden. We talk a lot about depth, and we've done about backdrop planting, and we've done, all the different stuff. But this is what's leading you through to what, and that's one of the questions. Where are we going?
It's the hook. It's the hook that grabs you and draws you in. If you don't have a good entrance to your garden, why should people walk into it and enjoy it? I mean, that is what you're looking at. And you got to grab people's entrance right there at the entrance. And how much better can you do that than with a Japanese maple? I mean, you got something awesome right there at the entranceway. I know in some English formal style gardens, they'll often have two pillar-like growing trees at the entranceway. And that can be accomplished, we were talking off earlier, with either a Twombly's Red Sentinel or a Tsukasa Silhouette. And you can have red pillars that are tall and narrow there, or green ones that give you some dynamic fall color.
And Japanese maples make such great walkway plantings. One, because they don't have invasive roots. So if you have an already established concrete walkway or path, you don't have to worry about the roots breaking up, lifting those up, or doing any damage.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the many reasons why they are amazing for these walkway plantings. But you got to also think about what a walkway is. It's where you're going to be traveling. And that means anything that has details and intricacies on the texture, the colors, unique leaves, those are going to be what you're drawn to more to have along those walkways. And Japanese maples have all of that. They got all that in a bag of chips.
So one thing you need to ask yourself with this is, where's your walkway taking you to? Are we talking about going to your front door? Are we talking about going to a certain garden or a particular space in your garden? Where is that walkway taking you?
And I think that's important to note. I mean, I think when I'm thinking about some walkways, I think about, the South Carolina Botanical Gardens, where you're just walking through this evergreen pathway. And then all of a sudden, it takes you and you're literally walking fairly fast. And then it opens up to like that Sengokaku there that was in fall color and a seating area where you can sit down and rest. And, obviously the Japanese maple is a focal point in that walkway, but it's still part of the walkway as that trail just continues along through the garden. And you can definitely use Japanese maples in that way if it's more sectioned, or if it's more open. You can often use some of those more dwarf or medium-sized Japanese maples.
And I always like to recommend is that I know sometimes spaces can be limited, or if you do have that sidewalk, walkway, or something like that, you could be limited, but add curves. Your walkways don't have to be linear, add curves. So if you do have something that is a straight line, well, with these trees, stuff that you can divert from that and go to different areas and add that curved aspect to a walkway.
Have you ever looked at the Biltmore Estate at the map of the way you go in and you twist and curve around everything? I mean, you twist and curve, and it's not a straight line. You're not trying to get to the Biltmore Estate as fast as you can. I mean, that's not what you're doing. what you're doing is you're appreciating the ground, you're appreciating the gardens as you're driving through to get to the Biltmore Estate. And I think that is what you need to do in a garden as well. You need curves. You need something interesting. When you make a curve, guess what? You've got a focal point right there when you're going straight before that curve. And you can put something amazing there, like a Japanese maple, that's going to grab people's attention. And I think it's the curves and the walkways are just as important in garden as that open space or your final destination.
So something you need to consider, though, is also the size of your walkway. You know, you talk about some of these gardens we've been to where you've got a 10-foot wide path, but then it gets small. I mean, when we were down at the Kubota Gardens, there were some paths that were 2 foot wide, and you had to get through, but then it opens up. That just adds excitement, texture. And to me, especially if you get something that kind of slims down, it's kind of like, ooh, this is exciting. What's on the other side of this?
Yeah, I think the way you make these twists and curves in a garden are super important. I think the pathway is sort of the bones of the garden when you're actually starting out, trying to figure out where things go. I think hardscaping is early on as well. And then you start looking at, other things after that. But walkway plantings are some of the most important things you can do, because as you're walking along enjoying the garden, you're walking by things that you can appreciate the beauty, the things that you couldn't see that are at a distance. And I think there are so many neat Japanese maples that fit in those spots. Now, one thing to think about when you have each of these spaces is to think about, what type of shape is this Japanese maple going to grow? You don't want to put something that's going to be very wide and weeping directly touching the walkway, because it's going to grow into the walkway. You're going to want to space that off. If it's in 10 years, it's going to be 6 to 8 foot. You're going to go ahead and space that off accordingly, half the way the distance away from the walkway, so that it's not growing into the walkway. The idea is Japanese maples are low maintenance. They're easy to grow, but you don't want to put something there that you're always going to have to be pruning back and shearing. So you just want to plan accordingly with the size and the shape of each Japanese maple.
And something else you need to consider with walkways is the soil and the drainage, especially if you're talking about that. If you have any type of hardscaping down, whether it be rocks or concrete, those type of things can cause drainage issues or block drainage, or cause issues where you think your Japanese maples is getting watered, but it really isn't. Or the complete opposite. Water's getting diverted because of that to that Japanese maple. So these are all things to consider and keep in mind.
And sunlight's always important when considering your Japanese maples. In hotter zones, Japanese maples may need some protection from the hot afternoon sun, but there are some varieties that are more heat tolerant than others. We've got full breakdowns on the best heat tolerant varieties of Japanese maples on the MrMaple Show. You can definitely go check those out.
So we were talking about one of the important aspects for a walkway garden is color and texture. So that's what we came up with our list of recommendations. We really wanted to get those colors and textures. And our first choice we came up with was Lillian's Jewel.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer for us if you know us here at the MrMaple Show, because Lillian's Jewel is one of the flashiest Japanese maples that there is. But it may get lost in the background as a red upright with maybe a little bit of pink. If you put this tree up close, you can really appreciate the intricacies on how every leaf is variegated differently. And you get pink variegation on a cherry red upright Japanese maple, 6 to 8 foot in 10 years, maybe about 8 foot wide as well. And so you can plan that out for your walkway and where you want to have this tree in the landscape. And one of the things about many of these Japanese maple selections, as you put them next to the walkway, you can actually put these spaced off, but if you're doing an upright selection, maybe you use this as something you walk under across the walkway as well.
And then the big leaves of Maikujaku, we're talking about the dancing peacock. You're just talking about, you get these, not only are you getting those big leaves, but you also get a really awesome fall interest out of these.
That's the thing that I love about Maikujaku is when you're up close, you actually realize how big those leaves are. And the leaves look like a peacock displaying its feathers, especially in the fall time when you get those yellows, oranges, and reds, and greens sometimes all in the leaf, and maybe even some purples all at the same time. It is an outstanding selection, But when you're up close, you actually realize how frilly the foliage is itself, how the leaf is so divided, and how big those leaves are, and they look tropical out there. So I do recommend putting something like Meikujaku up close near a walkway so you can really appreciate the intricacies of those leaves.
And I really like using lace leaves for a walkway planting, and that's why we had to go with filigree. You got that lace leaf, but you also, it being there closer at the walkway, you get to see the variegation on that, on a filigree.
Yeah, and we're talking about filigree or green filigree. You may need to give it some protection from the hot afternoon sun, but used properly along a walkway, you can really appreciate those little white flecking, that unique ghost-like reticulation on a lace leaf Japanese maple as you're walking by it. And you start to realize how beautiful it is. It just shines like a diamond. And you're like, man, that is awesome. It's one of the most highly prized weeping lace leaves by collectors. That's from J.D. Veritrees, not my own words, but it's true. And it's because the leaves have very unique divisions on them. It's deeply divided, but fatter lobes. And the variegation in it is striking. And when you have it up close, you can really appreciate it, like along a walkway. If you put this out in the middle of the yard, it's not going to have the same effect as it will as a walkway planting.
And then for walkways, I always like spring interest as well. Spring interest to lead you through. Golden Falls, the way it gets that border on the leaves just draws you in. And when you got something drawing you in and it's on the walkway, that's just going to lead you down the walkway.
Well, if we've got recommendations, I got to choose a yellow. And if I'm choosing a yellow for up close, that border, like you're talking about, that sort of pink-red kind of color on the yellow, it's dynamic. It gives you everything you love about Katsura's spring interest, but on a weeping, smaller Japanese maple selection. And with Golden Falls, it's in that Ryusen style. So it's got that heavily cascading habit. So you can do so much with this along a walkway. You can not stake it up and let it be a ground cover. You can stake it up and let it have that fountain-like, flowing-like effect. I've seen this trained over as a trellis, which is amazing. And there's so many fun ways to grow this selection. And along a pathway is a great way to showcase that.
And you talk about with the trellis, that could be your entrance to your walkway where you have the trellis going over and you have Golden Falls over that leading you in as your entrance.
That's a garden I want to walk in.
Absolutely.
That's a garden I want to walk in. Lastly, on our recommendations for Japanese maples, we selected Moonrise. It was a maple of the year with the North American branch of the Maple Society. It's beautiful, it's upright, and it has a unique multicolored effect with lime green to really like a purplish orange. And all throughout the leaf, it's that malting where you can really appreciate the intricacies of that full moon style leaf.
Yeah, those big leaves, and the fact that throughout the season, you've got the new growth on top of the old growth and the different colors. It's just such an attractive tree that for a walkway tree, it's absolutely, absolutely gorgeous. And it's one that just shows out all season long.
I mean, it's one of those trees that everybody loves wherever it is. And if you have it up close to a walkway, you're going to be walking by and being able to appreciate it each and every day. So an awesome selection there. Those are 5 different Japanese maples that are awesome for that mid-walkway presentation, which is awesome. I mean, I think walkway planting in a landscape and garden is underrated. People can talk about focal point plantings and all these other things, but the pathway, that's what's leading you throughout the garden. And for me, I'm going to plant it with Japanese maples.
And with walkways is such a great part of the garden to add companion plants to. So, we're talking about, any type of small conifer along with these adds great color and texture along with the Japanese maples.
I mean, I love using the conifers to bring me blue colors. I can't get that out of a Japanese maple, but I can out of conifers. And things like Pinostrobus Biltmore Blue, it's a dwarf compact form of a white pine that gives you good blue color in a small space. I mean, it was found as a dwarf mutation that happened on the Biltmore estate, and they actually had somebody go out there and shoot it out of the tree, and then they grafted it to have this little dwarf that we could put in our yards. But we're talking 4 or 5 feet in height and width in 10 years. Really slow grower. I mean, awesome blue color. And then you've got Colorado blue spruces and things like Glauca globosa, which is a Picea pungens with that compact form and that sort of silver blue sheen to it. They just give you some colors you can't get out of the Japanese maples, but you can put them along the walkway just to add even more interest.
And to add more texture to it, I like to use Japanese like forest grass to one that's going to add a little bit different texture off of your walkway. I think that's a great companion plant as well.
Yeah, and I think any flowering plant would do really well as something along the walkway where you can get up and appreciate the flowers. The Kurume azaleas, I love them. They've just one of the most prolific blooming azaleas that's out there. And they often have more blooms on them than when you look at them, that you can barely even see the leaves. And so they were actually found by the father of Kurume azaleas was a samurai. And so he was like a bad, awesome guy, right? And he found pink pearl like on the side of a volcano, an active volcano. So Kurume azaleas got some awesome history with all the samurai and amazing just azalea you can use in your landscape and garden.
And I also like to use ground cover. You're talking about areas that you know, it's your walkway. It's leading you through. It's taking you to your focal point or different areas of the garden. And ground cover is a great way to add more color and texture to that. But also there's benefits to it where you get moisture control from it. You get weed control from it. You hear a lot of people, when I was doing landscaping, I get people, I want a low maintenance garden. And I hate to break it to you, there's no true zero maintenance unless you want to put some fake trees, fake plants in your garden. There's ways to help.
And then when they start looking better, you still have to pull them out and replace them.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's no real zero maintenance garden, but there are ways that you can help and accommodate. So like I say, ground cover is a great way for moisture control, weed control, and then also to add different colors and textures to your garden and your walkway.
And junipers are a great way to do that. Some of the blue rug junipers do great in adding some blue color. Lime glow is a way to add some of that sort of yellow-green color out there. And then I know one of the things we didn't talk about with flowers were camellias. Mm-hmm. And there's some cold-tolerant camellias that are zone 6 and zone 7 camellias that can grow in people's zones that they don't realize you can actually grow a camellia. And they can give you an evergreen interest. And then when they're flowering, they're right there beside the walkway to be able to appreciate that. Things like pink icicles, extremely cold tolerant, large, very beautiful double pink blooms to it. I mean, amazing selection that go as a great companion plant with your Japanese maples with your walkway plantings.
Hey guys, if you guys like these type of videos, be sure to hit that like button and let us know in the comments section what are some of the Japanese maples that you use for your walkways.
Y'all, we appreciate y'all jumping in today. And a little different thing we've been doing here with helping with your landscaping needs and landscaping planning with Japanese maples. Hope you've enjoyed it. You know, if you like this type of thing, make sure you're subscribed. And we always appreciate it if you also share this with your gardening friends.
And be sure to hit up MrMaple.com and check out all the 1,500 varieties that we offer. Take care.
God bless.
And have a great day.